Hello and welcome to Pure Michigan Sports. Christian Peck-Dimit, Alex Deimel. He's already playing the fight song. You know what time it is. Christian and Alex, as usual, on Pure Michigan Sports, bringing you all of the sports news across the state of Michigan. If you're new, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. No matter who you are, drop a follow, subscribe if you're
And
on.
if you're Ryan Day, thank you so very much. Just thank you so much.
About 49% of me feels the pride of like, oh, we got, which is terrible, that like, oh, we got this guy fired, that, you know, this guy's going to lose his job because of us. And that fills me with pride for some reason. The 51% of me is like, let him stay. Give him another chance, you know? Sign another extension.
He lost his job himself. Let's start there. That was not a poorly played game. And I've been seeing that said everywhere. It was not from the Ohio State perspective, at least, it was not a poorly played game. That was a poorly coached game. Top,
it really was.
Bottom. And I don't think I have ever heard, at least, and again, I've only been on this earth for 22 years now. I don't think I've ever heard Ohio State fans, as rabid as they are, boo their own team or their own coaches before.
Dude, I've never seen him admit defeat like this. It's a little sad.
Any Ohio State fan I've had, there's no smack talk. There's no nothing. It's just, yeah, we suck. Ryan Day needs to go.
Yeah, it's never like that. It's absolutely wild.
And there's just so much joy to get out of that. And you can call any Michigan fan a scumbag for feeling joyous seeing someone else's downfall.
Yeah.
But that person I've said it before. I've said it again. That person doesn't understand the pain like Michigan sports fans do. Or Detroit, anywhere in the state of Michigan. They don't know what true pain is in a sports context. That does not exist. And I do want to start. The amount of people that have been saying Ohio State lost to a team that can't throw the forward pass, this isn't that.
Just true.
I don't really care. They lost. They lost to a team that they should have beaten.
Mm-hmm.
They should have beaten. There are other ways to run an offense that don't include passing. Army, or is it Army that runs the triple option? They barely throw the fucking ball. Mm-hmm. It's all ground game. At the end of the day, no, his strength was at the Division I college level clearly isn't necessarily throwing the ball, and he doesn't do it as well as everyone else. He still won the fucking game.
Talking about Davis Warren?
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about it before. The kid, and thankfully, because of the win, he got on some national headlines because obviously he grew up with leukemia or had leukemia. I think it was in high school. I think it was upperclassmen high school years.
ESPN Game Day did an awesome story about it. I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere. Go watch it if you haven't seen it, because it was he's a guy you would love to root for because, and not to pump his tires too much, but they talked about it earlier. He's like, coming in, I didn't want anyone knowing. He's like, that's not me. He's like, I'm here to play football.
Yeah.
And yeah, everyone's going to talk about it because it's an incredible thing to, I don't think either of us know, or hopefully we'll never have to experience the pain and the struggle of going through something like that. But this is a dude that's just about football.
Oh, yeah.
And that's also what makes it amazing.
The character of the kid is incredible. And along with that story that came out on game day, and ESPN did all these adjacent stories, and it's sort of getting picked up and made headlines now. There's all this stuff about the volunteering he does and the kids that he sort of mentors and talks to and visits. It's very cool to see. That being said, obviously, he's a terrible football quarterback. But as you guys can tell, we love to get right into it, and it is Michigan, Ohio State, massive Michigan win. To start Thanksgiving weekend. It really was a Lions game that started Thanksgiving weekend, but to put a punctuation point on Thanksgiving weekend. We'll get to the Lions in a little bit, don't you worry. But we do have one of the two people on this podcast that happened to call their shot about a week ago with this Michigan-Ohio State team saying, I think they might win, and that certainly was not me. So as long as we're pumping people's tires here, I think Mr. Deimel needs his pumped a little bit. And granted, it wasn't a rational take then. And anyone that said realistically Michigan is going to win this game, believing that was a logical take, before the game started is probably lying to you, but it's still a massive, massive win. And Mr. Deimel, you called your shot. How you feeling over there?
I have to say I'm gonna ease back a little bit on it because I'm sitting there. I sit down with my dad to watch the game,
Mm,
and I'm like, I went back to what I was like. I know they're gonna keep the first half close. I don't know about the second half. I think the second half could be a blowout, but I eased back on that a little bit, so I don't take too much pride in it. The one person I am going to give a lot of pride to is one of my housemates who you know very well, who has the unfortunate pleasure of being a Buckeye fan. And earlier on, we were all talking, and he was like, we were all like, it's going to be a blowout. Is this and that? And he goes, the biggest problem that Ohio State has is they play to the level of their opponent every single game.
mm.
And what I realized is, in fact, that wasn't the case. Their coaches coach to the level of their opponents every single game. And that's exactly what happened. This game, as much as it's the players on the field, the Michigan players won that game. The Ohio State coaches lost it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think it's one of those things, and it's important to note that, not the season everybody wanted. 7-5 coming off a national championship. That's not what anybody would ever like to see. But at the end of the day, this is a team that upset a 20-point favorite, and that is the first time that has happened in this rivalry since 1950. The last time Ohio State was listed in the top 2, and they were not number 1, and Michigan upset them was 1950. That's insane.
It really
and what
is.
I do want to say is as much as Ohio State coaches lost them this game, as much as their coaching staff lost them this game, they could have performed the exact same way, and Michigan still found a way to lose the game. It's not like there were no contributions. Did Davis Warren throwing an interception in the end zone to Jack Campbell piss me off? Absolutely. But he got back. He handed the ball off. Khalil Mullings got us right down the field where it needed to go. And this was not a team that was going to find its strength in passing. But at the end of the day, anybody that looks at film, looks at all these things, knows that a quarterback's job is the captain of the offense, whether it's the title for them specifically or not. It's to know exactly what's going to happen, is to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And when you got 10 guys, it's not the easiest thing in the world.
So you're trying to credit Warren here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, he could have gone in, he could have fumbled 50 million times. Like it could have been exactly what we've seen, with past Michigan quarterbacks, where there just was an overall inability to lead the team. You don't need to be the best player on the team. You need to be able to help your team get down the field. Khalil Mullings definitely did that. He pulled his fucking weight. I'm not getting it any other way. But holy hell, at the end of the day, it comes down to an ability to trust in your teammates and lead a team down the field, perform the plays like they're called. And you can talk all about them not being able to throw a forward pass. It didn't matter. They beat you down the field with the run game. They pounded the ball.
No, I think that's even, if anything, more of an indictment on Ohio State, that you lost to a team that can't throw the forward pass, and we can't. And I'm not going to sit here. Usually we have the flipped roles here, the negative and positive, but I'm not going to give Davis any credit. He was one of the couple of different people on this team that tried to hand Ohio State this win a couple of different times, and Ohio State just refused to grab it out of the palm of the Wolverines' hands. It's been said time and time again on every talk show, every podcast. But if you miss this game, it can all be summed up with exactly what Deimel said: the coaching. There is one, aside from maybe kicker, there is one single position group on the football field, and I'm talking offense, defense, special teams, everything. There is one position group that you can say that Michigan has an advantage and not be lying, and that's the defensive line.
Holy hell.
When you line up our quarterbacks and their quarterbacks, our running backs and their running backs, our safeties and their safeties.
Absolutely.
Especially given the fact that Colston Loveland was out, Will Johnson was out, even with them, you can line up our position groups versus theirs at every single spot on the field. The only one where we have an advantage is the defensive line. And I think, especially with Will Johnson out, the biggest discrepancy in terms of skill positions was our cornerbacks, our secondary, and their outside threats. And it
It
is
didn't matter.
almost
It didn't matter. That's the
no,
weirdest
no.
part.
I'm saying that's the thing. Is Ryan Day and Chip Kelly and the coaching staff for Ohio State, knowing all of that, got so prideful, got so in their own heads that we need to win this game at their game. We need to beat Michigan at their game. We need to prove that we're tougher. We have to prove Harbaugh wrong. We
You
are
proved it
not
already with your
standing.
record.
We're standing on third because we got there. He wanted to prove that so badly that he said we're going to run it between the trenches. We're going to zone scheme every time, and this is how we're going to win this football game. And that is the one way that Michigan could have won it. The only way, and my older brother is a Michigan graduate. He's got 2 degrees from there, but doesn't watch football. Not a sports guy at all. And he asked me, I'm back home for Thanksgiving, so was he. And he asked me, I've heard Michigan's real bad this year. We're probably going to lose this game, right? And I said, yes, we're probably going to lose this game. Really, the only way we can possibly win is if we just crush the line of scrimmage, win in the trenches, win the run game. And then I finished by saying, but that's not going to happen because there's no way in hell that that happens. Because there's no way that Chip Kelly ignores Emeka Egbuka, ignores Jeremiah Smith, ignores Tate, ignores his talented, best in the country wide receiver core, and says, I'm going to run it at double nickel. I'm going to run it at Kenneth Grant. I'm going to put it between the tackles, the one spot where this 7-win, at the time 6-win football team has an advantage. I just smacked my desk so hard the camera moved. It's idiotic. It's so beyond idiotic, it was hard to fathom. Myself, my little brother, the whole family watching this game, and my dad's pretty neutral. He actually went to a Michigan State, was watching this game going, what the hell is going on? How is this possible? How are you going to run a draw on 3rd and 9 in the red zone with a chance to win the game? They ended up missing that field goal. This is late in the 4th quarter. It's absolutely insane to me. It's so beyond inept. I didn't understand what was happening. I mean, it was crazy.
What would you believe me if I told you, even with all of that, Will Howard still had over 30 pass attempts?
Only because we kept giving him the ball back, dude.
Exactly. And not only that, he was 19 for 33 with a touchdown and 2 interceptions. I do want to say, I want to go back to, speaking of Will Howard, he's got what? It's like a 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. Bounces outside, take it, he's going to slide. Makari Page played probably the best hit on a quarterback that I have ever seen. And the reason I say that is because every single time I've ever seen a quarterback go down in the past 4 or 5 years, if you touch him, you're getting penalized. He was able to get his head down so low at the same time and his shoulders, didn't lead with the head, led with the shoulders, and put that dude in the ground. It was not dirty. He didn't lead with the head. There was no targeting. But at the same time, he put that dude in the dirt. Made him take 2-3 plays off, and they put Devin Brown in?
I think just 2, because they had like a timeout in there that they took.
Even still. And I think that set a message that this defense, regardless of how the offense might be playing, was not going anywhere. Was not going anywhere. Wink Martindale set up the perfect schemes. They executed it correctly without their best defensive player playing.
And that's the thing. I as much as I just crushed the play calling and everything, even with that, it still took an incredible performance from Michigan's D-line, from their defense, from Hall and Page, who both stepped up got interceptions, and played overall really solid games, despite the fact that, obviously, like we said, they weren't thrown to all that much. The offensive line for Michigan, who has been highly criticized and has underperformed significantly this year, they played solid, man.
Yeah.
They did. We
And
have knocked the up front boys for Michigan a number of times offensively, and
oh my
frankly, I
gosh.
think they've deserved it. But they played great. Kalel was great. I mean, it was awesome.
I mean, he had to be. They had 32 carries. 32 carries.
It's
We haven't
cowbell
seen a
stuff, dude.
Michigan running back with 32 carries in how long? I mean,
I
that was
couldn't
just
tell you.
it was the definition of bully ball where it was again, it's the Herb Brooks. Again, again,
Mm,
again, again. The longest pass of the day was 18 yards. Was that Peyton O'Leary
yeah.
catch?
hmm
That was the longest one of the day. It was
Shout
not.
out Alex Orgy, by the way. That slow moving
Is it just
fucker
me or
got
did
out
he
into
look
the.
slow?
He was so slow. He tweeted about it. I can't remember what he said, but something about it's not how fast you're going, but it's where you're going.
Well,
Uh,
my
he
question
he.
is it was it an injury? Was it
I
like
think we've
what?
just never seen him booking it in the open field like that, dude. He was slow as hell. I thought that was really funny.
I was just
Uh,
my dad and I looked at each other like
yeah.
that just didn't it didn't see I don't really he got the run. He got the run
Mm,
down there, and that's what mattered. I do want to quickly touch on because it's been such a focal point
mm,
is what happened after the game.
yeah.
And again, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not saying this from the lens of a college athlete. Neither is Christian. I'm saying this from the lens of someone who has watched and sat on this couch and watched this game every single year since I was well, really every single year, but from memory every year since I was 3 or 4 years old. Exactly what happened has happened so many times just without the police involved.
Mm.
Yes, it has happened during the game, and that's a little bit different. And that's where the coaches come in and break it up. If that were to have happened in Michigan's field and Michigan took that loss, I would have expected those players to react the exact same way. That's what a rivalry is. You can make the argument of, oh, beat them, you had 4 quarters to beat them, whatever, they should have handled it differently. I cannot imagine a single coach or GM that would not be looking at themselves saying, that's the fire I want. Like I unfortunately, like as much as I don't love having to give respect to anybody from Ohio, I totally respect Jack Campbell. I don't want them planting a flag on my field. But at the same time, he lost.
Jack Sawyer.
Or Jack Sawyer, Jack Campbell. Yeah, Jack
We do
Campbell.
respect Jack
We
Campbell
do we
too.
do love Jack Campbell, but Jack Sawyer, I get it. It sucks.
Mm.
And he played his ass off. That's a rivalry, and things are going to get heated. So Gus Johnson saying afterward it's disrespectful. They did it 2 years ago. No one called it disrespectful then. How many people have done that? But to label it as a problem with this game
Mm.
is ridiculous. That's what this game is. There's a reason it's called the game. Ryan Day put it. Unfortunately, I'm again giving an Ohio State person credit. It's war.
Mm.
And it's nonstop war until both teams are in the locker rooms. It's war in warm-ups. It's war in pregame. It's going to be war postgame until both teams go to locker rooms.
I'm going to
My
go
point
ahead
being
and
is this
my
has
bad.
been happening for years. For years.
It's also happened this year, and this is where I'm going to actually disagree with you a little bit. I get it. I would be probably singing a different tune if it were on Michigan's field. It were Michigan's players that started that fight. But first off, there is the point that you had 4 quarters to put up that fight, and you didn't. You didn't. And then there's the fact that twice this year, not just once, but twice, when we played Texas at home in Ann Arbor, and then when we played Oregon at home in Ann Arbor, they planted flags on our field, dude. Those guys planted flags on our field. Did we start fights? No, because we got fucking dog walked in those games, and we bit the bullet like a team that's just a little bit classier. Now, I'm not saying that
yeah.
it's classy at all to plant a flag because I think that's classless, and that's what we did. But I think there's an argument for the fact that Michigan probably wouldn't have started that fight had it been the other way around because we had multiple chances to. Yes, it wasn't against Ohio State. I get that. And we're playing counterfactual here, so it's a hypothetical. But I get the high ground, the people taking the high ground for Michigan. Side note, by the way, you mentioned Gus Johnson. I thought he didn't call a very good game. I enjoy Gus Johnson a lot, but I've had this opinion for
incredibly horrible.
Dude, people love Gus Johnson, and I like him in certain contexts, and I think I felt like a black sheep to have this opinion for a long time. Gus Johnson is the perfect broadcaster for 40 to 45 old school Pac-12 games. When he's in the Big Ten in the freezing cold for Wisconsin versus Minnesota that ends 13-10, just like this Michigan-Ohio State team did,
give him a Big 12 game. Just put him on the Big 12 forever.
Put him in the Big 12 and let him call Oklahoma State, Kansas, dude, where it's 35-28. Don't let him call 10-13. He had an off game. Sure, you can say, he's just like a player. He had an off game. I think in general, his game doesn't suit that. I think he's a Trae Young, dude. He's got all kinds of fucking firepower. But
I do want to preface that with saying, how often do you hear people critiquing commentators in a podcast, the fact that we're doing that and he's made himself that much of an image, like ultimate respect for the guy. But they and again, not that you can 110% control it, but there's that clip of the voice crack on the Jack Sawyer interception.
Yeah.
I was like, it was that paired with the the post game, the we didn't cheat this year. Like, just put on red and shut up. Like, at this rate, if you're gonna be that biased, at least just admit it.
That's the thing. The bias, certainly, I understand the Michigan fans complaining about the bias because I felt like I saw some too or heard some. I was just more saying, I don't think in these defensive dogfights that he had, and this is coming from a broadcaster who is on a significantly lower level than he is, and obviously we're much like we're critiquing college and pro athletes, we're doing it on the relative scale of their level, right? So I'm critiquing him as a high level game day broadcaster at the peak of college sports. I don't think he has very much flow to his game. I think he can call the big highlights, and then there's this in between where you just sort of exactly, and you just like where Joel dominates as he should, Joel Klatt, and I think he does a very good job. But I think there isn't much in between game, again, on the relative scale of the highest of high in terms of broadcasting skill.
You mentioned Joel Klatt, and I started kind of following him a little bit after last year's game, and the reason I did was he did probably the coolest. He is the king of storytelling.
Yeah.
It was the Zach Zinter story. Just being there and being able to capture that. I mean, if I could do anything like that when it came to storytelling, I think more people would probably be listening to our show, because he is just like he can put you in those situations. So again, I do want to get back to the sports, but shout out Joel Klatt.
Speaking of, we do have to get back to the sports because we promise you all of the sports news in the state of Michigan, and there's a ton of other Michigan football news aside from what happened in the shoe this weekend.
Yeah,
and you may have some more points on there, but first off, OC's finally gone. It seems like something that Kirk Campbell, we've got a bunch of different Campbells we're talking about this week. Kirk Campbell has been let go. I think that was yesterday that happened.
Yes.
We're recording this, whatever day it is, Wednesday. It seems like the writing was on the wall for him a little bit, but there's that, and there's the fact that a ton more recruits, I think there's been like 4 or 5 4-stars that have flipped to Michigan in the last week since our last episode came out. So Michigan's got in the news in a big way, and you have to think that wins like that help.
I, absolutely. And I think going back to like I guess not going back to, but talking about Kurt Campbell,
Mm.
it, you're right. It needed to happen. It just felt so weird. It's like we should be like
You're saying
everything
after the win?
after the win, after getting Bryce Underwood and all of these recruits coming in. It just was a weird feeling. I'm not saying they shouldn't have done it. I think
Yeah.
the offense obviously has been a huge, underperforming part
Hmm.
by top to bottom this year, and it definitely needed to happen. But it
So are you
just threw
saying
a
what?
really
Like wait
weird
a little
wrench.
longer?
Yeah, like give him the bowl game maybe, unless there's a like specific reason, like hey, we want to get this guy started. We don't want to get him
Mm.
some play calling experience. Because maybe it's a
It's
guy's an
probably
interim
good.
right
I
now.
think you're right. It's probably
It's an
going to be
in
an
house
interim anyways.
or interim, or it's like an in-house promotion where he starts as an
Mm.
interim for the bowl game and goes, who knows. I think it needed to happen, but it just felt a little weird. I do think I can't imagine being Ryan Day right now.
We
Like
haven't talked much about him in particular. Is there a scenario outside of win the chip or make it to the chip where he keeps his job?
no, no. If it, this was his make or break year,
Mm.
21 was Harbaugh's.
Facts.
Everybody wanted his ass gone if he lost. Everybody, they were done.
Yeah.
He turned it around. I don't I cannot understand. The only thing that will make sense to me is if the coordinators are fired and he is not. That is the only thing that could make some sense. I still think it's the wrong move,
Mm.
but I would understand that 10 times more than keeping him.
Because you can throw a lot as long as you're throwing this loss, as I think you rightly should, on the coaching staff.
But it's
Most
it's
of it
the
was play
last
calling. I'm
it's the
saying most
last
of it was
4
play
years.
calling. Yeah, that's
It's
the
the
thing.
last 4 years.
Mm.
And they say it all the time. I mean, it was said so many times, $12 million for nothing.
Mm.
$12 million for nothing. And that team has not lacked talent these past 4 years. These are some dogs. C.J. Stroud, Ibuka,
Marvin
I
Harrison.
mean Marvin Harrison. Go back to 4 years ago. You got Olave. You've got we were
Garrett
just
Wilson.
watching the highlights. It's Olave. You've got
Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson. You've got a wide receiver core so good
Jackson
that
Smith and Jigba.
Marvin Harrison was on the bench
Yeah, dude, it's
that year. Travion Henderson, Trey Sermon. These are dogs.
their talent at the skill positions for the
Like
last decade has been
top to bottom. They landed the
elite.
number. They had the number one recruit in the country as at tackle. Hutch shredded him up that year. There is seriously just you can have you can have as many chips as you want, and you can bully. You can play the big stack bully game
Mm.
all you want. If someone else at that table knows strategy better and knows how to play you better, you're gonna lose. And he's done that for the last 4 years. And not only that, it has kept him from a national championship. That game, now it doesn't mean as much with the 12-man playoff. But the
True.
reason that the
True.
last 3 years have had more emphasis on that rivalry than any prior year was because that game meant playoff berth every single year.
Mm.
And even when he still got playoff berth after losing, he didn't make it. I cannot imagine being the Ohio State athletic director, and on paper you have all of this and not making what seems like the most rational choice in the world. And on top of that, this is the dude, Mr. We're going to hang 100 on him. Mr. He's in the interview. He won't say one nice thing. He clearly hates Michigan and loves to prove that he hates it. Can't do the win. Can't find a win. Can't buy a win. Literally cannot buy a win.
$20 million can't buy you a win. I don't know if I could have put it any better myself, Alex. I think the funniest part, and I think we should probably wrap up Michigan talk here. The the thing I want to leave on is I still subscribe to The Athletic. Haven't been liking their content recently. This is a side note. I think that subscription's getting canceled soon. But got an alert this morning that said something along the lines of, I still love my job, or some quote from Ryan Day. In the caption was, Ohio State coach says he's not going to leave the program. Motherfucker, it was not up to you. It's not up to you still, dude. Who? Come on. I'm sure they reached out to him for that quote, and it wasn't just unprompted, but that's insane, bro. I mean,
No one's ever who. How
this
is
is
that
not
your
up to him, dude.
response?
It's not up to him. I will say the one saving grace is the fact that we talked about, that he's still got a shot at this chip, because
I
as
still think you fire him if he wins the chip. Personally,
come on, bro. If he brings you a national championship, there is no way in hell that they fire him. Nor should they. But
okay.
I think that is his saving grace right now.
Do you think if he makes it and loses, they keep him?
That will be interesting. I think if they make it and he loses, he still stays. There'll be multiple playoff wins, dude. I'm a Michigan fan. I want him to come back.
You walk into Sharon Moore's office, and they talked about it after the game. What's sitting right there in huge letters is the following sentence: "What are you doing to beat Ohio State today?" Any Ohio State member of the Ohio State football program, if you ask any of them, what is your goal? I'm willing to bet any amount of money. Not a single one of them will say national championship before beating Michigan. They might list national championship on that list, but beating that team up north is always number one.
Some of them are going to graduate with 4-year degrees and no wins.
And 0 Michigan wins. 0. And it gives me so much joy to shove it in their asses like that. But I cannot understand failing at that goal when you have every single thing that you should need.
Yeah. I said it very begrudgingly, but I said it.
That's where I don't really give a damn if you go to and the fact that I've thought about this much is sad, because I hate Ohio State. I'm hoping they think irrationally and they keep him. I'm genuinely praying, because
I think you think rationally if he goes to the chip and he stays, and that's the only realistic possibility where he stays. But I said it begrudgingly at the beginning of this year, but I said it all the same, that's the most talented roster in football. I think it was preseason. I think we were doing our preseason predictions, and I said OSU is the most talented roster in football. That's still true. It's the thing not between the white lines that's hurting them.
Do you think, and again, I promise this is the last thing and we'll move on to other sports. How much of this blame falls on Will Howard? Because we can talk about all the play calling and all of that stuff.
But
the guy airmailed.
Yeah.
I on the top of my head can think of at least 2 passes that were just simple out routes towards the sidelines that he just airmailed. He had those 2 bad interceptions.
How much multiple times?
How much of this blame? How much of this blame is on him?
Sorry, that's multiple times in big games now. Remember the Oregon game at the end where he slid?
Yeah.
Where he has sold.
Oh, yeah, that's what you meant.
Big win opportunities. I think that there is the requisite amount of blame is getting thrown toward him, only because it's 2 years in a row now where 2 high-level quarterbacks who are having good seasons underperformed against Michigan and through multiple interceptions. That's Kyle McCord last year, who got his great full circle moment.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Now, right? And now Will Howard. I think because of that, it happening multiple years in a row at the same position, and frankly, the fact that this is a team where he could have thrown another 2 interceptions and it shouldn't have mattered. I think that's the base we need to get back to, is the fact that no matter how diehard of a Michigan fan you were, you did not go into this game rationally believing in a win because this roster is really bad.
Thank you for
Because
throwing rationally in there. I appreciate
yeah,
it.
of course, of course. No, every Michigan fan believes they'll win every game, as probably should every fan of every team, unless you've been beaten down so badly like the Lions fans of old. But no one rationally thought we were going to win this game, die-hard fans included. So there are a lot of scenarios where any particular player plays 2-3 times as worse than they did, and you can still win this game. I think it was
Absolutely.
total ineptitude from the whole roster. We're now going to slide over to another spot on the gridiron. Any of our listeners, well, I guess if you're new, you don't know. We go in order of importance here. The biggest of the headlines, and obviously Michigan, Ohio State was the biggest, but not
That
all
was
that far behind them is the Lions damn well should have lost on Thanksgiving like they have so many years in a row. And it only took an all-time, literally history-makingly poor coach's decision that cost them that game. Eberflus became the first Bears head coach ever let go mid-season. And it is only because of how poorly he played at the end of the game. I'm not saying that that suddenly means they win if Caleb gets another 1 or 2 snaps, if they take that timeout and finish the clock at the end of the game better. Regardless, Michigan did its best, the Lions did its best to sell in the second half and at the end of this game. But what have we said a million times on this show? A win is a win. How do you balance the win is a win feelings with the like, shit, we've got no one left on defense and we played really bad?
It's hard. It's really hard. I mean, I was sitting there panic, and I'm mind you, I'm in family Thanksgiving, so extended family, like you, like kind of like your brother. I think I was one of maybe 2.5 people there that actually cared about the game. I had a few people there that were there to watch me watch the game, if that's any consolation. And my dad is having to tell me, like, dude, shut up, because every single time a player gets injured, I'm in a spiral. I'm in a spiral, and that's not something I think. It's obvious you can go after Dan Campbell and say that he runs the guys too hard. Injuries are not purposeful. They're not necessarily a part of a game plan. I think this is a guy that, plays his cards till the end. I did like the James Franklin piece the other day of like, my job is to put the guys in and make sure that they win at the right time. I don't think that the injuries are necessarily Dan Campbell's fault. I think they're
No.
going to happen.
Are
Um,
people placing blame on him?
I thought I read a few things of like, yeah, he's got to pull guys out and give them more rest. It sucks because that's not one of those where you can necessarily blame the team's performance. It's not like, oh, the team sucked. It's like, wow, guys are just getting hurt, and this is brutal. I know the inactives include Taylor Decker,
Oh, you just wait.
Josh Pascal.
I've got a list for you here. You
It's
ready
just
for
4,
this?
isn't it?
You ready for this? I've got a
Of
Michigan.
inactives?
I've got a Michigan, or excuse me, a Lions all IR defense. A couple of these guys were activated last week, but they spent a long time on the IR. But almost everyone is currently on the IR. Get ready for this list here. And obviously, if you're not a Lions fan, we hit all of the different teams. So I know that some of you listening probably are big Michigan fans and don't know much about the Lions. This will tell you everything you need to know. This is the all IR. This is not our starting team. John Kaminsky at D tackle, along with Kyle Pecco. D ends, Marcus Davenport, and of course, Hutch. In at linebacker, this is crazy. Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes, Malcolm Rodriguez, Jalen Reeves Mabin. Corners, Emmanuel Mosley and Rakestraw. And safety, Ife Melifonwu. Along with, if you want to throw him in on the defense, punt returner Khalif Raymond. If you take that team and then one of our current safeties, either Kirby or Branch, that's a top 10 defense in the league. Top 10.
So where you had me freaked out was I thought this was all from last Thursday.
No. This is
like,
what we've
I
collected,
know these amount of
bro.
guys got hurt, but I didn't think. Yeah. Listen, you can go back to the Hard Knocks from a few years ago where
Mm.
Dan Campbell's given. I know a lot of people have seen the speech, and a lot of people have made memes about it, where he's like, "This is all I think about."
All I think about is you guys, man.
The actual context behind that speech was they were already in pads,
Mm.
and people were pissed. That's where I think some of the blame came from, was like he runs the guys too hard, and it's all contact all the time. This is a guy that's gotten us to the best record I think in Lions history so far. I don't know that there's ever been a time that they were 11-1. Top of the conference, Super Bowl favorites. Now's not the time to start judging. And I will say that again, that is a top. I still think it's a top 10 defense
Even
without
without him.
Kirby O'Brien,
Mm.
with the amount of talent at linebacker and at defensive end. That's a good ass fucking defense.
It's sad.
But at the same time, I love the next man up mentality. This is a team that, there's going to be some close calls. It's not going to be a perfect game. It's not going to be a perfect team. I mean, the teams have bad losses, teams have great wins. We've had some great wins. We're going to cut some close. We also very well could not end the season 11-1. It looks like we're going to need to be that way if the NFC keeps playing the way they are. Holy
Holy
shit.
hell, dude.
But
Yeah.
the only time that it is really okay to press the complete and utter panic button is if your starting QB gets hurt,
Mm.
or it's the playoffs and you're losing. That's it.
That's fair.
If Goff goes down, or if we're losing in the playoffs. Those are the two times I will be fully pressing the panic button.
Now, you mentioned it briefly there, but in a very top-heavy NFC, right now, Lions obviously 11-1. One game behind are both the Vikings, who are a division foe and could potentially knock Detroit from the 1 seed to the 5, and then the Eagles, who are also 10-2, each of them just one game behind the Lions, including the fact that the Vikings and Lions play before the end of this season. I believe it's the season finale. That's insane, dude. To be 11-1 and to be sweating your ass off to not have to play a wild card game, that makes the injuries all the worse, because you can't afford to rest anybody. You have to play all the way through week 17, game 17. There were a couple of signings that were made. Lions signed a linebacker off the waivers, basically. Yeah, and then
Jamal Adams just
Jamal Adams as well.
Yeah,
dude, we need Jamal Adams. I thought the best comment, I can't remember what, it might have been Barstool Detroit, or maybe some account posted, "Hey, we're signing Jamal Adams," and the top comment was, "We need to start him at linebacker," because we've got no one left, dude. It's Jack Campbell, a hope, and a prayer, and those are our three linebackers starting right now. But I understand not hitting the panic button, but we've said it a couple times this season. I'm not pressing the panic button, but I'm finding out where it's at, right? I'm getting it close to my body. I'm getting my hand over the top of it, because there's only so many injuries that you can withstand. And we were already complaining, Kendall Vildor is out there too much because he's getting burnt every other route. Dude, he's going to have to play a lot. I mean, we've just got so many injuries. It's going to be tough to withstand. And I hate to be sort of falling down a mountain here of negativity. We will end with some Michigan basketball and end on a high note. But the Red Wings aren't exactly playing maybe up to their potential either. Do you want to speak to that? Is it still just it's 10, 11, and 4 right now? And I think nothing has changed for the better since the last show. Probably it's changed for the worse.
I don't know that there's been much change. You have an OT loss to a tough Boston team, as much as it sucks. The only one that I'm really going to give a decent amount of props to right now is Lucas Raymond. One, made the Swedish national team for Four Nations, as much as I'm never going to root for him during that tournament, or Team Sweden, because I'll be rooting for Team USA. That's incredible. Guy's got 9 goals, 18 assists, 27 points. Still has a -3 plus minus, only 6 penalty minutes. His power play production has been great. He's got 12 assists. 12 of his assists are on the power play. But that's also where I want to stop and take a second. Sunday, playing against the Canucks at home. That was the definition of what I said, or what I've been saying all year, is that this team needs defense. Where
Was it
the
5
offense
or
is
was it
clearly
6
there.
games? Or
6
goals?
is 6-5 was the final.
That was another OT loss, right?
Another overtime loss. Or sorry, 5-4.
Okay, that's what. All right.
But
Still, same
at
difference.
the same time, you give Jake DeBrusk a hat trick. You climb your way back to tie the game, and it goes into overtime. And yes, there were a couple where DeBrusk just put it in the perfect spot past Huso, and it worked. But there were just a few breakouts where I'm like, where is our team? Where's our defense? What are we doing? The power, or the pressure and the stress cannot all go on offense. And some of the offensive guys, ironically, need to step up their defensive ability. Need to make sure we're still tracking. This is the worst power play defense in the league.
Is it
by
really the
far.
worst?
10x the worst. I think it's the percentage is well above any other team in amounts of power play goals scored against.
Yeah.
It's where as soon as you take a penalty, doesn't matter. It's done. So until I see that, I'm not going to have much hope. It's still a long season, but again, I never played, and I'm not like a hockey expert by any stretch of the mean, but you need a defense, and you still don't. And Simon Edvinsson and Mo Seider can't carry the load. You got to have depth, and they don't.
Hey, man, it's like the Pistons. We talked about it. The one thing you failed to check off in the offseason was sign a backup point guard. And then you're mad when, your offense starts breaking down when Kate is on the bench. Like, you traded away your best defenseman. You didn't really do very much, if anything, to address it in free agency. You can't really clutch your pearls when the defense sucks now. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it sucks, but you didn't do anything to address it. And I know you still trust the Yzer plan, and I'm not indicting him right now. It's still early in the season, and it's a very long season, as we've mentioned a number of times. But no, it's not good, dude. And yeah, not pretty.
No, absolutely. And so with that, we didn't touch on it a ton, but I know you are very eager to talk about Michigan basketball.
Yeah, we
you sent me a text last night, and I want to talk about it. Where you said Michigan basketball is officially back.
Yeah.
Hold on. I love this. This is amazing basketball they're playing, and they just upset a very good Wisconsin team on the road. That's a huge conference win.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Buddy, it's December.
We're so fucking back, dude.
It's December. Can we say that yet?
You were asking me about it in the off season, dude. We signed a 5-star and you asked if we were back. We're so back, bro. Am I just desperate to get wins as a Michigan fan? Absolutely. Come on, I'm not going to pretend that that's not crazy. But do you know that right now, if the Wolverines, as they stand, win, I want to say it's Saturday we play. Yeah, it's Saturday at 1. We play Iowa at home. That's a solid Iowa team, whatever. I'm not saying we're going to win. But if we win that game, we'll have matched our win total from last season. Matched it.
That's a low-ass bar.
It is a low-ass bar. But
that's
everything has to be relative, right, to where your program is at. And where the program was at was a really bad place. I think on that relative scale, we're absolutely back, dude. We have back-to-back ranked wins. 2 games in a row, we just handed an undefeated ranked team their first loss of the season.
Domination. Wasn't even close.
Dude. Yeah, and I watched most of that Xavier game. It really was domination. The duo that now has a name as of last night, it was the Michigan admin on social media that gave them this name, Area 51. We're going to give a crash. Obviously, we know a lot of people don't watch college ball until college football's done. So probably next week we can go through and give a crash course on Michigan basketball and what the team is all about. But basically, it's defense, It's sharing the basketball, and it's these two 7-footers, bro. We start two 7-footers in the same lineup, Twin Tower style. Danny Wolf, who we have been loving on this show, and Vlad Golden, who maybe hasn't gotten as much credit on here. Danny Wolf had, get this, wait for this stat line right here, 7 of 11. He only missed 4 shots all night. 2 of them were threes, where he was 2 of 4 from downtown. 20 points, 7 boards, 5 assists, 5 blocks, 3 steals. That's every category. Not to mention the fact that he only turned the ball over 1 time. The only Division I basketball player to put up those stats, that's 20 points, 5 boards, 5 assists,
Like
5 steals. Get ready for this. Division I, the only player to post 25, 5, 5, 3 in the last 8 years.
It's not who I think it is.
No, I don't know who the hell the last guy was. It's Danny fucking Wolf. He did that.
Oh.
He did that yesterday, bro. It's insane. It's absolutely crazy.
I don't think Jack, as much as we love Jack, I don't think he grabbed that many boards in that game.
No.
I think he was just on the perimeter.
No, that would have been really cool. But Vlad Golden deserves a lot of credit as well. He had 3 blocks himself, which would have been wildly impressive if Danny didn't have 5. But
yeah,
Vlad had 24, 3 blocks, 5 rebounds. The big on when you can have A, 2 7-footers on the floor, and B, run them in a pick and roll where one of them is handling the basketball beyond the 3-point line. That is the blessing of all college basketball blessings. And when I say we're back, I don't mean we're going to go win the Big Ten, but I mean we can be legitimately competitive at the top of the conference. Come on, dude. That's surpassing my expectations and then some for this season.
Take it and run. Take it and run. Unless I'm missing anything, I think we can get more into Tigers next week when we don't have a Michigan football and a Lions win to spend 45 minutes on, because we haven't done too much of a free agency update there. But at the same time, there hasn't been a ton to talk about. So we'll see on that. Again, and then I lose where I'm going with these, and this is why you do.
We need our picks.
Oh,
we've got to throw in our picks of the week. And we're going to start with the team that we've talked about the least today, and that's the Detroit Pistons, who are 12.5-point underdogs in Boston on the second night of a back-to-back. You've got a road back-to-back with the best team in the league. Dude, I'm taking the Celtics minus 12.5 every single time. The Pistons have not looked good the last week and a half, and I still love them. I still think they'll crush their preseason win total, and they're tracking in the right direction. But we're going to get our asses whooped by all accounts. And do I hope they pull a Michigan football and should get their asses beat, but instead smear them across the court? Obviously. I'm not wishing that we lose, but I think realistically, if you're putting money on this game, minus 12.5 for the Celtics.
All right, Michigan pick. Jared Goff over 250 plus passing yards against Green Bay tomorrow. Without Jair Alexander, I think they could take advantage of this team. I know they still got McKinney, but that's one guy. We've got a roster full of wide receivers that I think he can toss the ball around to. He also only had 145 last time out in a cold, rainy, wet Green Bay game. I think he comes back and bounces back from that game specifically and balls out. So 250 plus for him. Non-Michigan pick real quick. I'm pulling it up to make sure I had the correct spread. Yes. Tomorrow, Big 12 Big East battle, undefeated Marquette at number 5 spot versus number 6 ISU 5-1. ISU at home, the spread is minus 5.5. Normally, home favorites that are ranked lower, that seems like a trap, and you would go there. I think Vegas gets this one wrong. I'm taking Marquette money line. I think Cam Jones is an animal. That currently that money line is plus 195. Cam Jones 20 points per game, and 6 assists per game. I think he takes this into his own hands. Upsets Iowa State at home.
I'm a big Clone supporter, so we'll have to see on that one. It's been another long episode on Pure Michigan Sports, but that's the way we like it, getting you all of the sports news across the state of Michigan. Stay tuned next week. Drop that follow, subscribe. We'll be giving you a Michigan basketball crash course. We'll be giving you a little bit of everything and obviously update you from all around. And we've got to finish the way we started. That's with the fight song, baby. Christian Peck-Dimit, Alex Deimel. Until next time, it's been Pure Michigan Sports.